She crossed the plaza late, coffee in hand, heels counting seconds. Morning, fear pretending to sleep. 3 black sedans idled at corners. A text blinked. Beautiful day to reconsider. She deleted it and walked on. Minutes later, 5 suits closed in. Red ties like warnings, choices narrowing. Her palm cracked across a smiling face. Silence shattered. Some moments change everything forever. The morning sun cuts through Chicago's Federal Plaza like a blade, casting sharp shadows between the concrete pillars. Emma Rodriguez adjusts her worn leather messenger bag, the strap digging into her shoulder, as she weaves through the crowd of suits and smartphones. 26 years old, public defender, idealist by profession and stubborn by nature. Her heels click against the pavement with the rhythm of someone perpetually late for justice. She doesn't notice the black sedan that's been following her for 3 blocks, or the way conversations seem to pause as she passes, or how certain faces in the crowd turn away just a fraction too quickly. The courthouse steps rise before her like a temple to broken promises. Emma climbs them 2 at a time, her mind already on the Henderson case. Domestic violence, 3rd strike. Husband with connections that reach into dark corners. The kind of case that makes careers disappear and witnesses relocate to different states. The kind of case Emma takes anyway. Inside, the marble halls echo with the whispered dealings of power. Emma's heels announce her arrival to every shadow that might be listening. She doesn't know yet that some shadows have names, bank accounts, and very long memories. The elevator carries her to the 7th floor, where justice wears expensive suits and speaks in carefully measured sentences. Emma's office is a closet compared to the mahogany chambers of the prosecutors, but it's hers. Law books lean against each other like old friends. Case files spread across her desk like battle plans. The coffee maker gurgles in the corner, brewing the fuel of the overworked and underpaid. Her phone buzzes. Text from an unknown number. "Beautiful morning, isn't it, Miss Rodriguez?" Emma frowns, deletes it, assumes it's spam. She doesn't look out her window to see the man in the charcoal suit standing across the street, lighting a cigarette with deliberate slowness. The Henderson file stares back at her from the desk. Maria Henderson, 43, 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and a husband who owns half the restaurant district. The photos are clinical, black and white evidence of violence painted in purple and yellow. Emma has seen worse, but something about this case feels different, heavier, like the air before a storm. Her assistant Sarah pokes her head through the door. 22, fresh out of paralegal school, still believes the system works. The Henderson deposition got moved to 2:30, and someone left this for you. She hands Emma an envelope. Cream-colored paper, expensive, no return address. Inside, a single line in elegant handwriting. "Some cases are worth more than justice. Consider your options." Emma crumples the note, tosses it in the trash, but her hands shake slightly as she reaches for her coffee. The liquid burns her tongue, bitter and necessary. She's received threats before. Occupational hazard of defending the defenseless. This feels different, more personal, like someone who knows exactly where to apply pressure. The courthouse cafeteria at lunch is a marketplace of deals and whispered confessions. Emma sits alone, picking at a wilted salad, when she feels it. The weight of observation. She looks up to find a man watching her from across the room. Late 30s, perfectly pressed suit, eyes like winter mornings. He doesn't look away when she notices him. Instead, he raises his coffee cup in a small salute. Emma stands abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. The man is gone when she looks back, but his coffee cup remains on the table, still steaming, still warm. The afternoon brings the Henderson deposition, and with it, the first real glimpse of what Emma is up against. Maria sits at the conference table like a bird with broken wings, her husband's lawyer flanking her like well-dressed predators. The questions come in waves, each one designed to break down her story, to make her doubt her own memory of pain. "Mrs. Henderson, are you certain about the timeline of events?" The lawyer's voice is silk over steel. Domestic disputes can be confusing. Emotions run high. Details become unclear. Emma watches Maria's hands twist in her lap, wedding ring catching the fluorescent light. 22 years of marriage reduced to he said she said in a windowless room that smells of stale coffee and broken dreams. "My client's injuries are documented," Emma interjects. The medical records speak for themselves. The lawyer smiles, the kind of expression that never reaches the eyes. Medical records can be interpreted many ways, Miss Rodriguez. Perhaps Mrs. Henderson would be more comfortable reconsidering her accusations. Misunderstandings happen in marriages, don't they, Mrs. Henderson? The silence stretches like a held breath. Maria looks at Emma, then at her husband's lawyer, then at her hands. The ring slides around her finger, too loose now from weight she's lost since the incident. Maria's voice is barely a whisper. I want to go home. Emma feels something crack inside her chest. Not her heart exactly, but the careful professionalism she wraps around her emotions. Mrs. Henderson, you don't have to. The deposition is concluded, the lawyer announces, already gathering his papers. Mrs. Henderson has made her position clear. Outside the courthouse, Emma stands in the dying light of afternoon, watching Maria disappear into a black car with tinted windows, the same kind that's been circling her neighborhood for the past week, the same kind that idles outside her favorite coffee shop every morning at 8:15. Her phone buzzes again. Same unknown number. Difficult day? Some battles aren't meant to be won. This time Emma doesn't delete the message. She screenshots it, saves it to a folder she labels evidence. Because Emma Rodriguez might be naive about many things, but she understands patterns. She recognizes the architecture of fear. The evening air carries the scent of approaching rain as Emma walks to her car. The parking garage is half empty, her footsteps echoing off concrete walls. She doesn't see the figure emerge from behind a pillar until he's close enough to touch. Miss Rodriguez. His voice is calm, conversational. The same man from the cafeteria, she realizes. Up close, his eyes are even colder. A word, if you please. Emma's hand finds her keys, positioning them between her fingers like small weapons. I don't talk to strangers in parking garages. He laughs, a sound without warmth. Vincent Moretti, now we're not strangers. He extends a hand she doesn't take. I represent certain interests in this city. Interests that prefer stability. Get to the point. The Henderson case. Drop it. Emma feels the familiar surge of defiance that has defined her since childhood. The same stubborn streak that made her argue with teachers, challenge professors, choose public defense over corporate law. No. Vincent studies her like she's a puzzle he's trying to solve. You know, most people in your position would ask about compensation first, or consequences. You just said no, because the answer is no. Even knowing that Michael Henderson has friends who value loyalty, friends who remember favors and expect them returned, Emma steps closer, close enough to smell his expensive cologne, to see the small scar that cuts through his left eyebrow. Are you threatening me, Mr. Moretti? I'm offering you perspective. His smile is all edges. But I can see you're the type who prefers to learn through experience. He turns to leave, then pauses. Oh, and Miss Rodriguez? You might want to vary your morning routine. Same coffee shop, same time, every day. It's predictable. The garage empties around them, the last car engines fading into distance. Emma stands alone with her racing heart and the growing certainty that she's stepped into something much larger than a domestic violence case. Something with teeth and patience and very long reach. The rain arrives that night like an uninvited confession, drumming against Emma's apartment windows with increasing urgency. She sits at her kitchen table, case files spread before her like tarot cards predicting disaster, a glass of wine growing warm in her hand. The Henderson file lies open, Maria's bruised face staring up from police photographs that capture pain in black and white, but miss the color of fear entirely. Emma's apartment is a study in controlled chaos. Law books tower in precarious stacks, their spines creating a library of justice deferred. Coffee rings mark her wooden table like evidence of sleepless nights, and takeout containers huddle in the refrigerator like refugees from a busier life. This is the habitat of someone who believes in causes more than comfort, who fights battles other people surrender before they begin. Her phone sits silent on the counter, but Emma finds herself glancing at it every few minutes, waiting for another message from the unknown number. The silence feels worse than threats, like the pause before lightning strikes. She's learned to distrust quiet moments in cases like these, when powerful men make phone calls to other powerful men, and problems disappear into Lake Michigan. The wine tastes like copper pennies, and poor decisions. Emma pushes the glass away and reaches for her laptop, fingers moving across keys with the practiced rhythm of someone accustomed to late-night research. She types, Vincent Moretti, Chicago, into the search bar, and watches the screen populate with carefully curated information. CEO of Moretti Holdings, philanthropist, board member of 3 children's charities. The photos show a man who understands cameras, who knows exactly how much smile to offer and when to look thoughtful. But Emma knows how to read between digital lines. She clicks deeper, follows threads that lead to other threads, traces connections that map like a spider's web across Chicago's power structure. Moretti Holdings owns restaurants that employ Henderson's workers. The children's charities receive donations from companies that rent from Moretti properties. Even his philanthropy forms a perfect circle, money flowing back to itself through channels that exist in legal gray areas. A sound in the hallway makes her look up. Footsteps, measured and deliberate, stopping outside her door. Emma holds her breath, laptop screen casting blue shadows across her face as she listens to the silence that follows. When the footsteps resume, moving past her apartment toward the stairwell, she releases air she didn't realize she'd been holding. She closes the laptop and moves to the window, parting curtains to peer down at the street. The same black sedan sits under a broken streetlight, engine running, exhaust visible in the cold air. Emma counts to 60, watching for movement inside the vehicle, but sees only darkness behind tinted glass. When she looks again 5 minutes later, the car is gone, leaving only tire tracks in the wet asphalt. Sleep comes in fragments that night, interrupted by dreams, where shadowy figures discuss her future in rooms she's never seen. Emma wakes before dawn with the taste of fear in her mouth and the conviction that some lines once crossed lead to territories where maps don't help and backup doesn't come. The morning brings coffee that tastes like determination, and a text message that arrives exactly at 7:30. Good morning, Miss Rodriguez. Lovely weather for a walk in Federal Plaza. Emma stares at the words until they blur, then screenshots the message and adds it to her growing collection of evidence. She dresses carefully, choosing her darkest suit like armor, pinning her hair back with the severity of someone preparing for war. The mirror reflects a woman who looks older than 26, eyes holding knowledge she wishes she could unknow. Federal Plaza stretches before her like a stage waiting for performance when Emma arrives at 8:15. The usual crowd flows around her, office workers clutching coffee like lifelines, tourists photographing buildings that house secrets, students hurrying toward classes that won't teach them about real power. Emma walks slowly, her heels announcing her presence to anyone who might be listening. She feels them before she sees them. The observers positioned like chess pieces around the plaza's perimeter. A woman reading a newspaper on a bench, but her eyes track movement over the paper's edge. A man feeding pigeons near the fountain, but his attention focuses on Emma rather than the birds. A maintenance worker sweeping the same section of sidewalk for the 3rd time since she arrived. Vincent Moretti emerges from the crowd like a conductor taking the stage, his approach timed with theatrical precision. He wears a different suit today, charcoal gray instead of black, but the confidence remains unchanged. Power walks differently than desperation, Emma notices. It moves with the certainty of someone accustomed to having doors opened and objections withdrawn. Miss Rodriguez. His greeting carries the warmth of winter wind. I was hoping we might continue our conversation. We have nothing to discuss. The Henderson case suggests otherwise. Vincent stops just outside her personal space, close enough that his cologne mingles with the morning air. I've done some research on you. Columbia Law, top 15% of your class turned down offers from 3 major firms to work public defense. Admirable, if financially questionable. Emma feels the weight of observation from his positioned watchers, realizes this encounter was orchestrated with military precision. Every exit from the plaza is covered, every escape route monitored. What do you want? To understand you. Vincent tilts his head, studying her like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. Most people in your position would have reconsidered by now. The smart ones always do. But you're not most people, are you? I'm someone who believes in justice. Justice. Vincent repeats the word like it's foreign, rolling it around his tongue before swallowing it. An expensive luxury, Miss Rodriguez. Not everyone can afford it. The plaza continues its morning rhythm around them, but Emma feels isolated in a bubble of danger that only she and Vincent can see. Is that what you told Maria Henderson? That justice was too expensive for someone like her? Vincent's smile sharpens. Mrs. Henderson made her choice. People usually do, when presented with proper perspective. You mean when they're terrorized into submission? I prefer the term, educated about consequences. Vincent checks his watch, a gesture that somehow manages to feel threatening. Speaking of education, have you considered what defending the Henderson case might cost you? Professionally speaking, of course. Emma feels anger building in her chest like steam in a kettle, pressure seeking release. Are you threatening my career now? I'm providing context. Vincent's voice remains conversational, but his eyes grow colder. Chicago is a small legal community. Reputations matter. Word travels quickly when lawyers pursue cases that certain parties find personally inconvenient. The fountain behind them churns water in endless circles, the sound masking their conversation from casual eavesdroppers. Emma realizes this location was chosen deliberately, positioned to provide both privacy and psychological pressure. The open space makes her feel exposed, while Vincent's positioning blocks her most direct exit route. What if I refuse? Then you'll discover that standing on principle is a lonely experience. Vincent's smile never wavers, especially when your friends start receiving visits from concerned citizens who worry about their association with problematic attorneys. Emma thinks of Sarah, barely 22, and supporting her mother's medical treatments. Of her mentor, Professor Harrison, who still sends her cases and encouragement. Of the network of relationships that supports her work and makes it possible to fight for people like Maria Henderson. You would threaten innocent people? I would ensure that everyone understands the full scope of their choices. Vincent steps back slightly, creating space that somehow feels more threatening than proximity. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. You haven't heard my offer yet. I'm not interested in your... Moretti Holdings is expanding our legal department. Vincent continues as if she hadn't spoken. We need someone with your passion for justice. Someone who understands the importance of fighting for the right causes. Starting salary would be 3 times your current income. Emma stares at him, recognizing the elegance of the trap. Not just a threat, but an alternative that makes surrender look like victory. And the Henderson case would become someone else's problem. Someone less invested in the outcome. The morning sun climbs higher, casting shorter shadows across the plaza. Emma watches office workers hurry past, each focused on their own small dramas, oblivious to the negotiation taking place in plain sight. She envisions Maria Henderson sitting in her kitchen, probably wondering if Emma will abandon her like everyone else who promised to help. I need time to think. Of course. Vincent produces a business card from his jacket, holding it between 2 fingers like a magician about to perform a trick. But don't take too long, Miss Rodriguez. Opportunities have expiration dates and patience isn't infinite. Emma takes the card, feeling the expensive paper between her fingers. The contact information is embossed in silver, Vincent's name spelled in letters that seem to catch light from impossible angles. One more thing, Vincent adds, his tone suggesting casual afterthought. Your evening routine is as predictable as your morning one. Same route home, same stops at the grocery store. Creature of habit, aren't you? The implication hits Emma like cold water. They know where she lives, where she shops, probably where she does laundry and gets her hair cut. The surveillance isn't casual. It's comprehensive, detailed, invasive. She's been cataloged like evidence in someone else's case file. Vincent turns to leave, then pauses as if remembering something important. Oh, and Miss Rodriguez? That wine you were drinking last night. The 2019 Cabernet from the corner store? Excellent choice, though perhaps you should consider varying your brands. Predictability can be limiting. He walks away without looking back, leaving Emma standing alone in the plaza with the business card growing warm in her hand, and the terrible understanding that her privacy died sometime in the past week without her noticing. The watchers fade back into the crowd like smoke dissipating, but Emma knows they're still there, still cataloging her reactions, still reporting back to Vincent about every expression that crosses her face. Emma's hands shake as she unlocks her office door, the business card still burning in her pocket like radioactive evidence. The hallway stretches behind her, empty except for the echo of her footsteps and the growing certainty that solitude is an illusion she can no longer afford. Every shadow might hide an observer. Every casual glance could be surveillance disguised as coincidence. Sarah looks up from her desk with the bright smile of someone whose biggest worry is whether the coffee maker will survive another day. Morning, Emma. You look tired. Rough night? Emma forces normalcy into her voice, but it comes out strained, like a violin string tuned too tight. Just working late on the Henderson case. Any messages? 3 from reporters asking about Maria Henderson. 2 from other attorneys offering to take over the case pro bono, and 1 from someone who wouldn't leave a name. Sarah hands her a pink message slip. He said you'd know what it was about. The note contains a single word, deciding, written in block letters that reveal nothing about the writer except their patience. Emma crumples the paper and tosses it toward the wastebasket, missing by inches. The small failure feels like prophecy. Her office welcomes her with familiar chaos, but even the comfort of routine feels contaminated now. Emma sits at her desk and stares at Vincent's business card, reading the silver letters until they blur. Moretti Holdings. She Googles the company again, this time diving deeper into public records, corporate filings, anything that might reveal the scope of what she's facing. The search results paint a picture of legitimate business success built on foundations she can't quite see. Moretti Holdings owns property throughout Chicago, employs hundreds of people, contributes millions to charity. But Emma has learned to read the spaces between facts, to find truth in what isn't said rather than what is. The company's growth timeline corresponds exactly with periods when certain competitors faced unexpected difficulties. Zoning approvals come through faster for Moretti projects. City contracts favor their bids with suspicious regularity. Her phone buzzes. A text from her mother in Phoenix. Saw you on the news, Mija. Proud of you for fighting for that woman. Be careful. Emma stares at the message, ice forming in her stomach. She hasn't been on any news that she knows of, but Vincent's organization apparently has ways of making sure the right people receive the right information. The threat extends beyond her professional life now, reaching toward family members who live 1,000 miles away but might not be far enough. She calls her mother immediately. Mom, what news story? Channel 7 this morning. They said you're representing that woman whose husband got arrested. The reporter made it sound dangerous, like you might be getting in over your head. Her mother's voice carries the worry that only comes from knowing your child too well. Emma, you don't have to save everyone. I have to save someone. Not at the cost of yourself, Mija. Some battles aren't worth fighting. After hanging up, Emma sits in silence that feels heavier than before. Vincent's influence extends further than she imagined, reaching into news cycles and family conversations, shaping narratives before she even knows they exist. The business card seems to grow warmer in her pocket, like a small fire that promises to consume everything she's built. Sarah knocks on the doorframe. Emma, there's someone here to see you, says it's about the Henderson case. Emma's pulse quickens. Vincent Moretti? No, a woman, Maria Henderson. Relief and dread war in Emma's chest as Maria enters the office, moving like someone who's forgotten how to trust her own balance. She wears sunglasses despite the cloudy day, but they can't hide the fresh bruise along her jawline, or the way she favors her left side when she sits. Mrs. Henderson, you shouldn't be here. If your husband finds out, he knows. Maria's voice is barely above a whisper. He sent me. The words hit Emma like physical blows. She leans back in her chair, studying Maria's posture, the careful way she holds herself, the resignation that radiates from her like heat from pavement. What did he say? That I needed to thank you personally for understanding how complicated marriage can be. Maria removes her sunglasses, revealing an eye swollen nearly shut. That sometimes what looks like abuse is just misunderstanding between people who love each other. Emma feels something break inside her chest. Not her heart, but her faith in the possibility of justice. Maria, you don't have to do this. There are resources, safe houses, ways to... You don't understand. Maria's laugh is hollow, echoing in the small office like a prayer said backwards. There is no safe. There is no away. There is only what Michael allows and what he doesn't. Vincent Moretti got to you. Maria's remaining good eye widens slightly, fear flickering across her features like lightning. I don't know anyone by that name. He threatened you. Or your family. What did he say? Nothing. No one said anything. I just realized I was confused about what happened. Marriage is complicated. Sometimes women misinterpret things when emotions run high. The words sound rehearsed, spoken with the careful precision of someone who's practiced them until they feel almost true. Emma stands, moving around her desk to kneel beside Maria's chair. Look at me. Really look at me. You came to me because you needed help. That need hasn't changed. Everything has changed. Maria won't meet her eyes. My sister lives in Milwaukee. She has 3 children. Did you know that? The implication lands like a physical blow. Emma rocks back on her heels, understanding flooding through her with nauseating clarity. Vincent didn't just threaten Maria. He mapped her entire emotional landscape, identified every pressure point, every person she loves enough to sacrifice herself for. What do you need me to do? Drop the case publicly. Say that after further investigation you've determined that the charges were based on misunderstandings. Maria finally looks at Emma directly, her good eye pleading. Please, I can't. I can't lose anyone else. Emma returns to her chair, feeling older than her 26 years, weighted down by knowledge she doesn't want to carry. And if I don't, then other people will suffer for my mistake. The office falls silent except for the distant hum of traffic and the whispered conversations of justice being negotiated in hallways throughout the building. Emma stares at the Henderson file, at photographs that document violence with clinical precision, at medical reports that translate pain into legal language. How long have you known Vincent Moretti? I told you. I don't. Maria. Emma's voice cuts through the denial like a blade. How long? Maria's composure cracks, revealing exhaustion that goes deeper than physical injury. Since I was 17. He was a friend of the family. He introduced me to Michael. The pieces align with terrible clarity. Vincent didn't just intervene in the Henderson case. He orchestrated it from the beginning. A 25-year investment in control that Emma stumbled into like a mouse in a maze designed by someone much smarter and infinitely more patient. You could have warned me. I tried. Maria's voice breaks slightly. The first day you took my case, I wanted to tell you to run, but I was so tired of being afraid, so desperate to believe someone could help me. I thought maybe you were different. I am different. No. Maria shakes her head slowly. You're just younger. But you'll learn, like everyone else. You'll learn that some people are too powerful to fight, too connected to challenge. You'll learn that justice is a luxury that people like me can't afford. Emma feels the weight of Vincent's business card in her pocket, the promise of escape disguised as opportunity. 3 times her current salary. Important cases. The chance to fight for justice within a system that guarantees victory. All she has to do is abandon one broken woman to save herself. What if I said no? What if I refused to drop the case, took it to trial, made Vincent's threats public? Maria stands slowly, moving like someone much older than her 43 years. Then you'll discover that some lessons are taught in ways that leave permanent marks. She moves toward the door, then pauses. Emma, you seem like a good person. The kind who believes in fairy tales where good wins and bad gets punished. Don't let that belief destroy you. After Maria leaves, Emma sits alone in her office, staring at case files that suddenly feel like evidence of her own naivety. She spent her entire career believing that law and justice were synonymous, that truth and power operated on the same moral spectrum. Vincent Moretti represents the uncomfortable education that some truths are too expensive to speak, and some forms of power exist beyond the reach of any court. Her computer chimes with an email notification. The subject line reads, Alternative Career Opportunities, and the sender is listed as vmorettiholdings.com. Emma doesn't open it immediately, but she doesn't delete it either. It sits in her inbox like a small poison, growing more tempting with each passing minute. The afternoon brings 3 more visits from people connected to the Henderson case. A court clerk who mentions that certain judges might view the case unfavorably. A paralegal from another firm who suggests that pursuing the matter could damage Emma's reputation. A bailiff who casually mentions that courtroom security can't guarantee safety for attorneys who make themselves targets. Each conversation is perfectly normal on the surface, the kind of professional advice that flows through courthouse hallways every day. But Emma hears the orchestration underneath, recognizes Vincent's influence in the timing and content of each interaction. He's not just threatening her. He's educating her about the comprehensive nature of his power. By 5 o'clock, Emma understands that she's not fighting a case anymore. She's being absorbed into a system that exists parallel to the law, where influence matters more than evidence and connection trumps conviction. Vincent isn't just offering her a job, he's providing a masterclass in how real power operates in a city where everything has a price and everyone has a breaking point. The question isn't whether she'll surrender. The question is what she'll demand in exchange for her capitulation, and whether she'll retain enough of herself to recognize the person she becomes after Vincent finishes educating her about the true nature of justice in Chicago. But as Emma sits in her darkening office, staring at case files that document pain she's powerless to address, Something stubborn and foolish stirs in her chest. The same defiance that made her choose public defense over corporate law, that made her take cases other attorneys wouldn't touch, that made her believe she could make a difference in a system designed to crush idealists like small insects. She opens Vincent's email and types a response. Federal Plaza. Tomorrow, noon. We finish this. Hey, you've been following this intense story for a while now, and I can feel the tension building just like you can. Emma's world is crumbling, but she's still fighting. What do you think she should do? Should she take Vincent's offer and try to change the system from the inside? Or make her stand right here, right now, even if it destroys her? Drop your thoughts below. I genuinely want to know where you think this is heading because the next part is going to change everything. The night passes like a fever dream, punctuated by car engines that idle too long outside Emma's apartment, and phone calls that disconnect when she answers. She doesn't sleep so much as drift through periods of unconsciousness, interrupted by the hypervigilance of someone who's learned that safety is negotiable and privacy is extinct. By dawn, her coffee tastes like copper, and her reflection shows eyes that have aged years and hours. Emma dresses with the deliberate care of someone preparing for either victory or funeral. Black suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back in a style that suggests competence rather than vulnerability. She studies herself in the mirror, memorizing the face of who she was before noon today. Changes everything about who she'll become. The woman staring back looks determined, but Emma recognizes the fear lurking beneath professional composure. Federal Plaza arrives wrapped in morning mist that makes the concrete and steel feel ethereal, like a stage set for a play where the ending hasn't been written yet. Emma positions herself near the fountain, the same spot where Vincent cornered her yesterday, reclaiming territory through presence rather than force. She arrives 30 minutes early, not from eagerness but from the understanding that punctuality is power, and she needs every advantage she can manufacture. The plaza fills slowly with its usual cast of characters. Office workers clutching coffee like talismans against Monday morning. Tourists photographing buildings that house secrets they'll never know. Pigeons performing their daily ballet around crumbs and kindness. Emma watches the crowd with new eyes, recognizing that any of these innocent faces might be Vincent's observers, that surveillance has become her constant companion whether she acknowledges it or not. At 11:45 she spots them. Vincent's people positioned with military precision around the plaza's perimeter. The woman with the newspaper from yesterday, now feeding pigeons near the memorial. A maintenance worker who's been sweeping the same section of sidewalk for 20 minutes. A businessman on a bench, ostensibly reading emails but tracking movement over his phone screen. They're not hiding anymore, Emma realizes. Vincent wants her to see them, wants her to understand the scope of his attention. Vincent emerges from the crowd at exactly noon, his timing perfect as always. Today he wears navy blue instead of charcoal, but the confidence remains unchanged. He moves like someone accustomed to having paths cleared and objections withdrawn, power walking with the casual certainty of gravity itself. Miss Rodriguez. His greeting carries the warmth of winter wind. I received your message. Rather cryptic, but intriguing. We need to establish ground rules. Vincent's eyebrows rise slightly, surprise flickering across features that rarely display uncontrolled emotion. Ground rules? How delightfully optimistic. What did you have in mind? Emma feels the weight of observation from his positioned watchers, realizes this conversation will be analyzed from multiple angles and reported back with clinical precision. Maria Henderson's family remains untouched. Her sister, her children, everyone connected to her life. That's non-negotiable. Assuming, of course, that Mrs. Henderson continues to understand the importance of accurate testimony. Vincent's smile sharpens. Memories can be unreliable things, especially when emotions cloud judgment. Her testimony won't be needed if there's no case to testify in. Vincent studies her like a chess player contemplating an unexpected move. You're offering to withdraw from the Henderson matter? I'm offering to consider your employment proposal. Emma keeps her voice steady, professional, but feels something die inside her chest as the words leave her mouth. Assuming the terms are acceptable. Ah. Vincent nods slowly, recognition dawning in his eyes. You want to negotiate? How refreshingly practical of you, Miss Rodriguez. I was beginning to think you were one of those tiresome idealists who prefer martyrdom to advancement. The fountain churns water in endless circles behind them, its sound masking their conversation from casual eavesdroppers. while creating an atmosphere of controlled chaos. Emma realizes this location serves multiple purposes for Vincent, providing both acoustic cover and psychological pressure through its suggestion of forces beyond human control. What exactly does Moretti Holdings need from a public defender with a stubborn streak? Someone who understands justice from both sides. Vincent checks his watch, a gesture that manages to feel threatening despite its mundane nature. Someone who's seen how the system fails people and wants to fix it from a position of actual influence. Emma feels the trap's elegant construction, the way Vincent transforms surrender into mission, defeat into opportunity. And my role would be? Legal counsel for our charitable foundations, community outreach, ensuring that our philanthropic efforts reach the people who need them most. Vincent's voice carries conviction that sounds almost genuine. You'd be helping more people in a year than you could in a decade of public defense work, while ensuring that cases like Maria Henderson's never see the inside of a courtroom, while ensuring that problems like Maria Henderson's are solved before they require courtroom intervention. Vincent's correction is subtle but significant, reframing prevention as public service rather than suppression. Sometimes the best justice is the kind that happens quietly, without media attention or public spectacle. Emma watches a group of law students walk past, their conversations animated with theoretical passion about justice and truth. She remembers being their age, believing that law school prepared her for battle rather than negotiation, that the system rewarded courage rather than compromise. What about my current caseload? Would be transferred to other attorneys, carefully chosen ones who understand the importance of measured approaches to sensitive matters. Vincent steps closer, close enough that his cologne mingles with the morning air. Your clients would be well represented, Miss Rodriguez. Perhaps better than they are currently. The implication stings because it carries truth. Emma's resources are limited, her time divided among too many cases, her influence constrained by budget and politics. Vincent offers the seductive possibility of actually helping people, of working within a system that guarantees results rather than struggling against one designed to exhaust idealists. Starting salary? $250,000 annually, plus performance bonuses. Vincent delivers the figure with the casualness of someone discussing weather. Health insurance that covers experimental treatments, retirement contributions that compound at rates most people never see, access to resources that make problems disappear rather than multiply. Emma calculates rapidly. The salary alone would pay off her law school debt in 3 years instead of 15, would let her help her parents retire, would provide security she's never known. The benefits extend beyond money into influence, connection, the ability to affect change from inside systems rather than battling them from outside. I'd need guarantees about the Henderson case. Mrs. Henderson would receive the best possible outcome given her circumstances. Vincent's phrasing is careful, legally precise. Her husband would be encouraged to seek counseling for his anger management issues. Their marriage would receive professional support to address communication problems. Everyone would benefit from a measured approach to resolution. Emma hears what he's not saying. Michael Henderson would receive a warning but no consequences. Maria would remain trapped but with better medical coverage for future injuries. The system would continue functioning exactly as it always has, with money and influence determining outcomes more than evidence or justice. And if I refuse your generous offer? Then you'll discover that Chicago's legal community is smaller than you imagine, and that reputation travels faster than truth. Vincent's voice remains conversational, but his eyes grow colder. Cases will become harder to win. Judges will find your arguments less compelling. Witnesses will develop memory problems. The slow death of 1,000 professional disappointments. The plaza continues its morning rhythm around them, but Emma feels isolated in a bubble of consequence that only she and Vincent can see. She understands now that this isn't just about one case or one job offer. This is about the education of Emma Rodriguez, about learning how power actually operates in a city where everything has a price and everyone has pressure points. I need time to consider your offer. Of course. Vincent produces another business card, this one cream-colored with gold lettering. My private number. When you're ready to discuss details, call any time, day or night. Emma takes the card, feeling its expensive weight between her fingers. How long do I have? Until Mrs. Henderson's case comes to trial. Next Tuesday, I believe. Vincent's smile is all edges. Unless, of course, certain motions are filed to delay proceedings. Bureaucracy can be wonderfully flexible when properly motivated. He turns to leave, then pauses as if remembering something important. Oh, and Miss Rodriguez, your student loan provider received an interesting call this morning. Someone expressing concern about your ability to maintain current payment schedules given recent professional uncertainties. Credit agencies do appreciate advance warning about potential problems. The threat lands with surgical precision. Emma's financial stability, already precarious on a public defender's salary, becomes instantly more fragile. Vincent hasn't just offered her a job, he's demonstrated the consequences of refusal by attacking the foundation of her economic survival. That's illegal, is it? Expressing concern about someone's financial stability? Warning creditors about potential risks? I believe that's called fiduciary responsibility. Vincent's laugh is without warmth. The law is wonderfully flexible when you understand its nuances. He walks away without looking back, leaving Emma standing alone in the plaza with the business card growing warm in her hand, and the terrible understanding that her choices have been narrowed to acceptable surrender or comprehensive destruction. The watchers fade back into the crowd like smoke dissipating, but Emma knows they're still there, still cataloging her reactions, still reporting back to Vincent about every expression that crosses her face. The morning sun climbs higher, casting shorter shadows across the concrete. Emma watches office workers hurry past, each focused on their own small dramas, oblivious to the negotiation that just redefined her entire future. She envisions Maria Henderson sitting in her kitchen, probably wondering if Emma will abandon her like everyone else who promised help, but delivered disappointment. The business card seems to pulse in her hand like a small heart, warm with the promise of security and influence and the kind of justice that happens in boardrooms rather than courtrooms. All she has to do is call the number, accept the offer, and transform from someone who fights the system into someone who operates it. But as Emma stands in the plaza's center, surrounded by Vincent's invisible observers and the weight of consequences she can't escape, something stubborn and reckless stirs in her chest. The same defiance that made her choose law school over easier paths, that made her take cases other attorneys wouldn't touch, that made her believe she could make a difference in a world designed to crush idealists like small insects. She looks down at Vincent's business card one final time, memorizing the gold lettering and expensive paper stock. Then, with deliberate slowness, she tears it in half. The sound is small but definitive, like the snap of a bone breaking or a door slamming shut on possibilities that will never come again. The torn pieces of Vincent's business card flutter to the ground like confetti at a funeral, golden letters catching sunlight before disappearing into the plaza's geometric shadows. Emma watches them fall with the detached fascination of someone observing their own destruction, understanding that some moments divide life into before and after with surgical precision. The woman who stood here 5 minutes ago, contemplating compromise, no longer exists. The plaza erupts into motion around her as Vincent's watchers converge with predatory efficiency. Not toward her, Emma realizes with growing unease, but around her, creating a human perimeter that looks casual to distant observers but feels suffocating to anyone trapped inside it. The businessman on the bench rises slowly, folding his phone with deliberate care. The woman feeding pigeons abandons her breadcrumbs and moves closer. The maintenance worker stops pretending to sweep and positions himself near Emma's most direct exit route. Vincent himself emerges from the crowd's flow like a shark surfacing from deep water, his expression transformed from polite negotiation to something colder and infinitely more dangerous. His approach lacks the theatrical timing of their previous encounters, replaced by the focused urgency of someone whose patience has reached its natural conclusion. Miss Rodriguez. His voice carries new weight, syllables pronounced with the precision of someone issuing final warnings. That was remarkably foolish even by your standards. Emma feels her pulse accelerate but keeps her voice steady, professional, tinged with the reckless courage of someone who's already lost everything worth protecting. It was honest, something you might not recognize. Honesty is a luxury that people in your position can't afford. Vincent steps closer, close enough that Emma can see the small scar that cuts through his left eyebrow, close enough to smell his expensive cologne mixed with something else. Anticipation, perhaps, or the scent of violence held in careful restraint. But don't worry, I'm feeling generous today. One final opportunity for reasonable discussion. The fountain behind them churns water with mechanical persistence, its sound now feeling less like acoustic cover and more like the countdown to something irreversible. Emma glances around the plaza, noting how Vincent's people have created a perfect surveillance bubble, close enough to intervene if necessary, but distant enough to maintain plausible deniability if witnesses later describe what they saw. What kind of discussion involves surrounding someone with hired muscle? Vincent's laugh is sharp, brittle, like glass breaking in slow motion. Hired muscle? Miss Rodriguez, these are colleagues, community leaders, people who care deeply about Chicago's stability and prosperity. He gestures casually toward the nearest watcher. Mr. Chen there owns 3 restaurants in Chinatown. Mrs. Patterson operates a very successful catering business. All legitimate entrepreneurs who understand the importance of cooperative problem solving. Emma studies the faces around her, recognizing the truth in Vincent's words and finding it more terrifying than outright threats. These aren't hired thugs or obvious criminals. They're ordinary business owners, community members, people who've learned to see Vincent's influence as protection rather than predation. The system isn't just corrupt, it's seductive, offering benefits to those who participate and isolation to those who resist. What do you want, Vincent? The same thing I've always wanted. Your cooperation. His tone suggests patience, but Emma catches the undercurrent of steel beneath silk. Mrs. Henderson's case withdrawn. Your public acknowledgement that domestic disputes are complex matters requiring nuanced solutions. Your acceptance of a position where you can actually help people instead of tilting at windmills. And if I refuse? Vincent checks his watch, a gesture that's become his signature threat. Time itself weaponized against those who oppose him. Then you'll discover that consequences have a way of expanding beyond their original scope. Your student loan provider has already expressed concerns. Your landlord might develop similar worries. Professional references have a tendency to forget past recommendations when future uncertainties arise. Emma feels the noose tightening, recognizes the comprehensive nature of Vincent's power. He doesn't just threaten. He orchestrates systematic isolation, cutting connections until resistance becomes impossible, and surrender becomes the only logical choice. You're destroying my life because I won't abandon one client? I'm offering to rebuild your life because you have potential worth salvaging. Vincent's voice softens slightly, taking on the tone of someone genuinely disappointed by necessity. You could be remarkable, Miss Rodriguez, truly influential, but influence requires understanding how the world actually works, not how law school textbooks claim it should work. The morning sun climbs higher, casting the plaza in harsh light that eliminates shadows and exposes every detail with brutal clarity. Emma realizes this conversation is being recorded, probably from multiple angles, creating documentation of her choices that could be used to justify whatever comes next. Vincent operates with the confidence of someone who controls not just the present moment, but its future interpretation. What about Maria Henderson? What happens to her? Mrs. Henderson will receive exactly what she needs: protection, support, medical care when necessary. Vincent's answer comes quickly, rehearsed, like a sales pitch he's delivered countless times. Her husband will be managed through appropriate channels. Their marriage will stabilize through professional intervention. Everyone benefits from measured solutions. Emma hears the euphemisms, translates them into honest language. Maria will remain trapped, but her injuries will be treated discreetly. Michael will be warned, but never prosecuted. The violence will continue, but with better medical coverage and plausible explanations for emergency room visits. Vincent offers sustainability rather than justice, management instead of resolution. You're asking me to participate in her ongoing abuse. I'm asking you to accept reality, instead of chasing fantasy. Vincent's patience shows signs of strain, his voice taking on an edge that suggests this conversation is approaching its natural conclusion. Justice isn't a destination, Miss Rodriguez. It's a process. Sometimes that process requires compromise. Emma looks around the plaza one final time, cataloging faces that will remember this moment, understanding that whatever happens next will be witnessed and documented by people who've learned to see Vincent's version of order as preferable to chaos. She thinks of Maria Henderson sitting in her kitchen, probably wondering if hope was just another form of cruelty, practiced by people who promise help, but deliver disappointment. You know what the difference is between us, Vincent? Enlighten me. You think power means making people afraid to say no. Emma feels something crystallize inside her chest, hard and sharp and unbreakable. I think it means being brave enough to say it anyway. The words hang in the air between them like a declaration of war, written in syllables that can't be retracted or renegotiated. Vincent's expression doesn't change immediately, but Emma sees something shift behind his eyes. Calculation giving way to the cold recognition that some people can't be educated, influenced, or managed through conventional means. "Miss Rodriguez." His voice drops to barely above a whisper, but Emma hears every word with perfect clarity. "Do you understand what you're choosing? I'm choosing to be someone I can live with. And if that choice makes living considerably more difficult?" Emma steps closer to Vincent, close enough to see her own reflection in his eyes, close enough that his positioned watchers tense with anticipation. "Then I'll deal with difficult." For a moment that stretches like held breath, they stand facing each other in the plaza's center, two people who represent different philosophies of power and justice, locked in a stalemate that only one of them can survive. Vincent's control depends on everyone eventually accepting his logic, his protection, his version of order. Emma's defiance threatens the fundamental assumption that everyone has a price, and every principle can be negotiated. Then, without warning, Emma's hand moves with shocking speed, connecting with Vincent's face in a slap that echoes across the plaza like a gunshot. The sound freezes conversations, stops pedestrians mid-step, creates a moment of perfect silence that seems to suspend the laws of physics and social convention. Vincent's head snaps to the side, his carefully groomed composure shattered by the simple physics of palm-meeting cheek. When he turns back to face Emma, his eyes hold something she's never seen before. Not anger or surprise, but recognition, appreciation even, the kind of respect reserved for opponents worthy of serious attention. "Well," Vincent touches his cheek gingerly, his fingers coming away with a small trace of blood from where Emma's ring caught skin. "That was unexpected." His smile, when it comes, is different from any he's shown before. Not the practiced expression of someone managing appearances, but something genuine and predatory and almost admiring. "You know, Miss Rodriguez, I've spent months wondering what kind of person you really were underneath all that idealistic armor. Now I know." Emma's hand stings from impact, but she doesn't step back, doesn't apologize, doesn't show anything resembling regret. "What kind of person am I?" "The dangerous kind." Vincent's voice carries something that might be respect or might be the prelude to something much worse. "The kind who means what they say. The kind who can't be bought or intimidated or reasoned with." He pauses, still touching his cheek. "The kind I could actually use." The plaza slowly returns to motion around them, conversations resuming, pedestrians continuing their journeys, normalcy reasserting itself over the momentary disruption of violence. But Emma knows that nothing is normal anymore, that the slap has changed the fundamental equation between her and Vincent in ways she doesn't fully understand. "Final offer, Miss Rodriguez." Vincent straightens his tie, composes his expression, but his eyes remain sharp with new interest. "Join my organization, not as a lawyer seeking redemption, but as someone who understands that real change requires real power, someone who's proven they can make the hard choices." Emma stares at him, recognizing the trap's final evolution. Vincent isn't just offering her a job anymore. He's offering her the chance to become like him, to trade her principles for influence, her conscience for effectiveness. The most seductive corruption of all, the promise that she could change the system from inside while the system slowly changes her. "No." The word falls between them like a stone dropped into still water, creating ripples that will spread far beyond this moment. Vincent nods slowly, almost respectfully, like a chess master acknowledging a well-played game. "Then we understand each other perfectly." His smile is winter cold, but tinged with something that might be admiration. "This should be interesting." He turns and walks away, his watchers falling into formation around him as they disappear into the crowd. Emma stands alone in the plaza's center, her hand still stinging from impact, her career probably ending with each step Vincent takes toward whatever revenge he's already planning. But for the first time in weeks, Emma feels like herself again, scared, isolated, probably doomed, but authentic in a way she'd almost forgotten was possible. She looks down at the torn pieces of Vincent's business card, still scattered around her feet like evidence of choices that can't be unmade. Tomorrow she'll find another way to help Maria Henderson. Tomorrow she'll face whatever consequences Vincent decides to impose. Tomorrow she'll discover whether standing on principle was courage or just elaborate suicide. Today, she slapped the most powerful man in Chicago and walked away while he smiled. Sometimes that's enough. And hey, Thank you for staying with this intense journey all the way to the end. Emma made her choice, probably the hardest one of her life. What did you think of that ending? Did Vincent's smile at the end give you chills too? I'm curious. Do you think Emma was brave or foolish? And what do you imagine happens next in her story? This kind of psychological thriller really gets under your skin, doesn't it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on how this all played out. Drop a comment and let me know what you're thinking, because stories like this are meant to be discussed, debated, and felt long after the last word.